We're back. Oh, there we go. Now your landscape again. Now we're back. I mean, we're still back.
And let's see, my charger is hopefully. There we go.
Yep. Now that we're ready to keep talking and able to concentrate a little better, we're going to go into the second half of this wonderful interview here with Will of Ignition Core Games, the creator of Ignition Core Games and the game Ignition Core, the chibi-mech skirmish war game. So for this second half of the interview, I'd like to focus on the rules and gameplay. So basically the rules. So we kind of know what kind of actual game we're playing, aside from the aesthetics.
Okay. You want to pop? Yeah, I see you've got the rulebook popped open there.
Mm-hmm. I'm ready to follow along with however you honestly feel like explaining the rules. We don't have to go through like a line-by-line detail, but just as you go through kind of a general overview of how you would sell playing the game, or how, how you, when I was sitting there and you were telling me, or how you would teach someone to play the game, maybe not even that detailed, but just enough to know kind of what you're getting into when you're playing Ignition Core.
So let's scroll down to the phases. There are 5 phases to a battle round. That's the biggest thing. So I think it's taking a second for Twitch to catch up.
Yeah, there's going to be a delay with what I do from what you see.
So let's just say we're playing the game. We've got our mission set up. We know what our deployment zones are. We've laid our terrain down.
Just real quick, let me show the audience what that looks like, because I'm not going to go into full detail about what the scenarios are, but there is a separate download for the combat scenarios. So here you go. Like first contact. Here's an easy one. You've got your entire board. You've got your 1-inch by 1-inch squares. You've got where the terrain is. You got your deployment zones. You got where your objectives are. Super easy. Sorry to interrupt, but please continue.
No problem. So you'll follow that guide. It'll tell you how to put down terrain. You'll see your deployment zones. You'll see where the objective markers go. You'll also know what scores points in that scenario. Excuse me here. Scruffy said there was 100% not enough dog treats in the first half of the video. So once that's done, you're going to roll off. Most people that play war games know what a roll-off is. We each roll a die. Whoever has the highest result is the winner of the roll-off. That person will start deploying models. So you'll alternate deploying models, one model at a time, with some exceptions, right? So you put a transport down. You decide, hey, this transport is going down with 2 infantry and 1 hero embarked. Okay, cool. You get through deployment. You then start on your first phase of the game. That's the initiative phase. I'm going to roll 3d10. You're going to roll 3d10. And we're competing for spots on an initiative tracker that rolls, that goes from 0 to 9. If I rolled a 6, a 7, and a 1, and you rolled a 5, a 7, and a 2, guess what? We claim the unique results, so I get the 5 and the 1, you get the 7 and the 2, and we'd have to re-roll the duplicate result. I know I forgot what numbers I just said. You claim the unique results, there you go. Any duplicates have to be re-rolled. Now, just to get a little nitpicky on this, if I rolled 2 7s and you rolled 1 7, I'd get to keep the 7 because I had more results of it than you, assuming it wasn't already claimed from the previous roll. And we just keep rolling until we're all assigned initiative spots. So this may sound like you're just rolling dice forever, but it really takes about 3 to 5 rolls and everyone's assigned.
You might, once you get used to it, you might spend a minute or 2 on the initiative phase. Just because of decisions and rolling and re-rolls, and that's it. And it sets up so much fun and tactics. So
I feel like the roll, exactly, yeah. And I feel like the rolling portion is at worst 30 seconds.
Yeah, it really is.
It takes what, 6 seconds to roll dice and register the numbers in your brain, and you do that 5 times over. 5 times 6, that's 30. I think I got that right. Once that's done, you put the dice down. You then go from the lowest initiative step to the highest, and you assign one of your three troop, basically unit brackets. So the unit brackets are pilot, support, and infantry. So the pilot is obviously piloting the warlord mech, so the pilot and the mech are there. Support, that's your support mechs. And then infantry, and it's on the card, it's infantry and dropships. So the dropship is bundled with the infantry because its primary purpose is to transport the infantry. So starting with the lowest initiative step 0, hey, that's me. I have to put the first one down because they are the least prepared unit. So, hey, you know what? I say my infantry are going to go last. So now, okay, maybe the next lowest initiative step roll was 3, and that's Jared. And Jared says, well, I want my pilot to go last. Maybe he's thinking, okay, by holding the pilot as late as possible, new targets will have presented themselves. Meanwhile, I'm thinking, okay, hey, I want my infantry to go last so that they can fly up and steal the objective from my opponent. So this process repeats until you've assigned all your initiative steps. And it's fairly dynamic because not only are you trying to put your own plan together, but you're getting in the head of your opponent.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know what they put down or what they're going to put down after you put something down. You're not sure what they're trying to do. And you're basically just trying to be as problematic as possible for each other.
Yep. So everybody's plans start where they want it and then just slowly have to morph around each other.
Exactly.
It's a really cool capture of the flow of a battle as much as you can in a game,
Exactly. And you want to do things 3 different ways when there's only one way it's going to unfold. So I've gotten to the initiative phase and I've seen people they're biting their lower lip. They're glaring at each other. They're laughing a little bit. It's okay, I know if I put this down, you're going to do this, or I think you're going to do this, so I'm going to do this. And it's a game within the game. I haven't seen a whole ton of analysis paralysis kick in here, but it is a game within the game.
Mm-hmm.
Once that's done, you do what's called the tactical phase. The tactical phase, your models will have tactical abilities attached to them, and you will decide what you're going to do. A tactical ability might say, hey, I'm declaring that my infantry assault force operator is not going to spend any movement points this turn. However, they are going into defensive positions, which means at any time during the battle round, I can activate this to move 1 step and make a free shooting action. So that's a neat little thing you can do. The Valkyries have a ton of tactical abilities. I think the tactical phase is where they really get their own tactical flexibility from. That's where you're using all the different Aesir and Einherjar protocols to, basically choose your flavor of dominance on the battlefield for that round.
So that's the biggest thing I like about Paladins is the ability to sacrifice movement to use a tactical ability to be able to shoot something that drops into my line of sight and range. As soon as they do it, I really like that a lot.
Yeah. Well, the Valkyries do it a little different. They get a choice between movement or more movement. So do I want to move my normal amount and just be a better, more effective hunter? Or, do I want to have more movement to close the gap between me and the hunt? You'll see that tomorrow. And the rest of you will hopefully see that in a week, 2 weeks, the time it takes.
2 weeks max. It depends on, what happens in real life, outside of the editing and all that. But, ideally we'll play tomorrow, which, that means nothing to anybody that watches this afterwards, but we'll play it tomorrow and then it'll be a week after, the Friday after that it'll be out. The 2 weeks, that's the second Friday after that at most. So it'll be within 2 weeks or less. I'm going to push for less, but not promise it.
There you go. No, yep, exactly. Be non-committal. I agree. And for those of you that are on the Discord, to kind of throw you a bone, I'll try and, if I am present of mind enough tomorrow, I will take pictures of highlights and I'll post them on the Discord channel throughout the day, just saying, hey, turn 1, turn 2, turn 3, here are the highlights, here's roughly what happened, just so you got a little something to, basically to sort of lay out what the highlights of what you can look forward to in the battle report. You won't leave the end of the day empty-handed, if I remember.
You've done it so far. There are other 2 battle reports you've done. So I mean, I'll put the Discord's in our chat now, and I'll put it on the YouTube video as well in the description when it gets there. Your Discord, the Ignition Core Discord, so that people can hop into it.
There you go.
So we have our tactical phase where we basically have our prep, where we're like, okay, I'm going to kind of I have these abilities that I can do that I'm going to plan for what's happening and I can activate. And after that, we have the activation phase.
The activation phase. So this is simple, but it is the meat and potatoes at this point. You are going to start at the highest point on the initiative tracker. So step 9. So this weirds some people out, right? Because I do 0 through 9 instead of 1 through 10 on my D10s.
Well, you do both realistically.
Yeah. You could do both realistically.
Well, I mean, you do both because you assign from low to high, but you activate from high to low.
Right, exactly. So you're going to activate from high to low. You're going to go down that initiative tracker and say, okay, initiative step 9. Hey, that's Jared. Jared put his support mechs there. Jared is going to activate his first support mech, burn up all of its movement and action points, and then he's going to move on to a second support mech, burn up all of its movement and action points, and then we descend to the next highest initiative step. Hey, that's 6. That's me. I put my pilot there. So my pilot is currently embarked on my Warg class mech. I am going to burn up all my pilot's movement and action points to activate that mech. Maybe that mech provides some additional movement points or action points because, hey, it's got a flight kit. Flight kit's going to typically add the flying keyword, which means exactly what it sounds like. You can fly over things, and about 4 to 6 extra movement points depending on which flight kit. Some of them come with a boost, meaning you can spend an action point to go 3 more squares. Regardless, hey, step 6, I've used my pilot to activate the Warlord class mech. I've used up all available action movement points. Okay, I'm done. Now we go to the next initiative step. Hey, that's 4, then 3, then 2, then 0, then depending on how we've assigned, how we've rolled, that's your activation phase. What's good about this is in your initiative phase, you assign your different categories to each step. So we've all heard of a thing. I don't know if you've heard of it in these words, but analysis paralysis, right? You're playing that big giant tabletop miniatures game, and you've got a lot of decisions to make, and you don't even know where to start. Well, this game here, you've broken your fire team down into thirds. So, hey, it's initiative step 9. Okay, I'm first up. I have to deal with 1/3 of my forces, and guess what? It's 8 or 9 models. I can figure out 1/3 of 8 or 9 models. That's what, 2.3 to 3 models average. I can figure that out at that point in time. So I've seen people that are indecisive wargamers get to this and they're like, okay, I don't know what to activate first. It's like, no, I put my pilot in the first spot. I've got to move my pilot first.
Well, this is my choice. I guess I'll do my choice.
Exactly. So not only
that helps me a lot. I can tell you that.
Not only did you get a game within a game during the initiative phase, but now you've kind of compartmentalized the activation phase. And I think Chris, she liked this a lot because the last time she played, she said this was the first time in many, many, many months that she started a game that she actually got to play to a conclusion.
Yeah. Yeah, and she picked up Onis. We haven't assembled or done anything with them. She has an Oni fire team, and then I have a like half painted Paladin fire team. So I'll still be using the studio painted stuff. But eventually it's going to get to the point where you're not going to be in a battle report, Will, and one day you're just going to see like, hey, there's another Ignition Core battle report. Didn't know that was happening. Guess I'll watch it. I'm excited to get to that point.
I'm looking forward to that, and then also me blowing you and your buddy up the next day with, hey, man, these are all the tactical errors you made.
Dude, as long as it's tactical errors and not rules we got wrong, I'll be okay with that. Because I'm more concerned with getting all the rules right as we play than I am with getting the tactical stuff utilized. That'll come, and I also, spoiler alert, if enough people locally start getting into this, I'm going to start running tournaments in Fort Worth and Granbury, Texas. So buy stuff, y'all, and there will be tournaments. We'll figure out how that works. Maybe I'll figure out how it works. Maybe Will and I will, but it's going to happen regardless.
If you make it happen, I will. I'll make sure there's prize support.
I shall make it so. So yeah, if you're in the Texas area, especially DFW, there can be a community real quick, and there's already one developing. So
yeah, it's growing. So we talked about activation phase. Once the activation phase is done, you go to the scoring phase. Scoring phase is pretty simple. You take a look at the scenario you're playing, and that tells you all the things that earn points. Commonly, the objectives are, hey, it's 1 point for each objective you control. Some have staggered objectives, so some objectives may be worth more points than others, depending on which team you're on and which objective you're controlling. That will be detailed in the mission. And then there's secondaries. There's Headhunter. Did you wipe out all your opponent's infantry? Cool. Hey, that's 1 victory point. There's Mech Buster. Did you wipe out all the support mechs? That's a victory point. Night Slayer. If you're playing with heroes, each hero that you took out from your opponent's side is a victory point. Titan Slayer, you get a victory point for slaying your opponent's Warlord class mech. And King Slayer, hey, if you can break open that Warlord mech and run that pilot to ground, that's 2 victory points. The pilot is 2 victory points. So that makes, that I think is the great equalizer. Being able to take out an opponent's pilot. I will segue to say that I have had games where I've watched a player play very aggressively, obliterate a good chunk of their opponent, and then their opponent, and we'll get to the reinforcement phase next, but their opponent uses their reinforcement phase smartly. They find out that their opponent, that player A, they have deeply entrenched their Warlord mech and their pilot a little too far into enemy lines, and they use their reinforcements to run that pilot to ground, and they close the score gap.
Because, initially when someone hears what you just said, they're going to say, like, oh, all your stuff got killed. Man, you got tabled, right? But what's the last phase of the game?
Reinforcement phase.
Of the battle round, excuse me, not the game.
That's fine. Reinforcement phase. At the end of the battle round, you're going to do a reinforcement phase, starting with the last player to activate. You are going to alternate returning models to your deployment zone until all your models are back in play. So what this does is, where other war games where you play the battle of attrition, they have that slippery slope, right? Like, I've lost half my army on turn 1 because my opponent had a crippling shooting phase. Okay, now you live with that for the rest of the game. I did away with that. So the reinforcement phase, you're going to lose some precious things, right? You're going to give your opponent victory points if they take out too many models. You're going to lose ground on the battlefield because the objectives, you have to take ground to get them. So losing ground is meaningful. So what I want to stress here is that even though your opponent is going to get all their models back at the end of the turn, you're still gaining precious traction against them. This is not a game of attrition. This is a game of traction and positioning and area control and tactics. That said, the reinforcement phase is going to restore all the models back to the table. So in that reinforcement phase, it means that, yes, even though you played tactically smart on turn one, you're going to have a tactical advantage, and you're going to have to back that up logistically because you spent ammo and took damage getting it. So, hey, hopefully you're smart about positioning your dropship to resupply ammo to your line units. Your opponent is not out of the game.
Nope. And I think to interrupt here, I apologize. It's a real selling point to this game for me is that it does these two things simultaneously. Ignition Core greatly rewards aggression while greatly punishing overextending, all in one game.
Yeah, that's about right. You can't play this game defensively. If you turtle up, your opponent is going to move on to the midfield, claim all the objectives, and that's it. You've given the game up. However, there is a balancing factor where you are going to overextend if you overextend, and your opponent will have the opportunity to take your withered units and push them off. And I don't know. I mean, it seems like it all just kind of comes out in the wash, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it's just that's so simple. Where it's just you're gonna roll out to figure out what order y'all go in, and then you're just gonna go, and then it's like, to simplify it from an outsider's view in layman terms, it's roll out to figure out who's gonna go win, go, and then figure out what just happened, then start over.
Yeah.
Like it's so quick and so, like, a lot of skirmish games end at being smaller in table size and model count, and then they're still long, or they're so fast that you're like, you didn't even feel like you get to play. Whereas this Ignition Core to me feels like the perfect balance of skirmish games should be. It's low model count, it's small table size, it's fast games, but they're not instantly over. Even playing recklessly, I haven't had a game that's just instantly over because of the reinforcement phase. Like, I can't stress it enough and want to make sure it's clear that every battle round, both players are starting with their entire fire team. Because anything you lost, anything that got destroyed, is coming back to start that round. Anything that got lost is starting in your deployment, but you still are starting every round with your entire fire team.
Now, it's not 100% consequence free, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, you run your pilot out there. The warlord mech gets shot off the table. The pilot has to eject and hide behind a building somewhere. Guess what? The reinforcement mech is coming back in your deployment zone. So you can dig into the rules. You can read Eden Link yourself. There is a neural link between the pilot and the mech. It's just not as efficient when the pilot is disembarked. So
yeah, I think a good way to put it, just the way it feels for me, it may feel different for others, but Ignition Core is really a game where it's easy to make decisions, but there are no easy decisions.
Yeah, that's fair.
You know, then that just caters to the fact that it is a faster game. It can be like our games that haven't been battle reports. I don't count game time on battle reports. That's a whole different monster. But our games that we've actually played, I mean, we've had 30, 45 minute 3-round games. We can have a 5-round game in an hour and a half, and maybe even shorter once I get used to the rules more, because that was back when I wasn't as familiar. But like, you're not spending a huge amount of time. Like, a tournament like a tournament day. A 3 to 5 game tournament could be in one day with this kind of game, whereas like the typical war game is spread over 2 days, or you get 3 games in one day. Like I think that could be, no matter what, pushed into one day easy, and not even like a long strenuous day. Just it definitely has faster in all the best ways gameplay for sure.
I feel like we played the 5-round game in an afternoon easily because we weren't filming. We just sat down and played the game. And the thing is, like, I think 5 rounds is where this game is. It shines at, like, at 3 rounds, it's very satisfying. But at 5 rounds, you get this entire, like, counterattack phase. Or counterattack. I don't want to call it a phase. It's more like, it's like a full 3-act play.
Well, I know you didn't do this on purpose, but you know, anybody that hangs around me long enough knows how much I love mixed martial arts. But like, it's perfect that you have 3 rounds and 5 rounds, because like the 3-round fights are exciting, and you're going to see the guys that are going to win anyway, like get through. But you're going to get a lot of decisions from the guys that are pretty equally matched. And it's not till you get to 5 rounds where you see who the real champions are.
Yeah, I absolutely. And the 5-round games are just. If I could do one thing for the rest of my life, it'd be playing the 5-round games. The 5-round games are amazing, and the 7-round games, oh my god, I would love once a month, once every 3 months, to just play a 7-round game of Ignition Core. You know what? I'll throw this out there on the airwaves. I have not played a 7-round game of this game yet.
Challenge accepted, anyone? Just saying.
Yeah,
there it is.
Yeah. Do what you will with that information. The 7-round game is for that's got
to be the beer and pretzel game, right? Could be.
Yeah.
Could be.
Yeah.
I don't know, because it seems like, for me, at 3 rounds, it's intense. And you're going to get a lot of really close scores because of how well the game is designed. Like, you're only going to get runaway games because it's 2 players that are just severely outmatched skill-wise, not necessarily just because of what armies or what fire team they're playing, but just personal skill level of the player. Personal opinion. But, you know, in a 5-round game, like I said, it's where you get the true champions, the guys that can really stick it out, and their tactics are going to show. Your, you know, best laid plans are going to either play out or get foiled. But 7 rounds is like, ooh, that is an endurance run. Still going to be better than most big war games. Still going to be faster. But, like, the equivalent on Ignition Core, that's your endurance. That's your, like, you know, grab some drinks, grab some snacks. We're gonna do this.
Oh yeah, no. So I'm picturing the 7-round game. I'm trying to picture it from the perspective of an infantry unit or model in the game, right? So like 3 rounds is I'm coming in with my Crusader minigun, like blat blat blat. 5 rounds is like blat blat blat. Okay, I need a resupply over here. 7 rounds, it's like round 7 is like, okay, I've got a minigun. This thing can throw out a bajillion rounds per minute. I've got 3 rounds, a combat knife, a toothpick, and some dental floss. I'm trying to figure out like what I'm gonna fight, what I'm gonna counterattack with. You know,
oh my god! You just made me realize we haven't brought out like the biggest point to me of this game. Who can take control of objectives?
Only the infantry or infantry equivalents. So
yes, mechs cannot take an objective directly.
I mean, if the warlord mech wants to jet to an objective and the pilot wants to expose itself by getting out of the mech, yeah, it can get the objective. Sure. Infantry heroes, pilots. Yeah, that's it. That's what gets objectives.
I absolutely love the fact that you have a mech-based, mech-focused game, but it's still about the humans. It's still about who can jump out and get out there. Like, they're still the ones doing the work. Like they're the pilots. This mech suit is a big hunk of metal if you have no one piloting it. This dropship is a big hunk of metal if no one is flying the thing.
Yep.
Like, what ultimately matters are the soldiers on the field. I love that.
Yep. No, that's by design, and it's very Attack on Titan. You know, a lot of my playtesters have said this game has some very, and you know, I mean, it's a whole genre apart, right? Like that's a very dark anime series. This is a very hopeful world. It's not grim dark, but
I mean, technically, Asalia is a world on the upswing. It's met tragedy, but it's on the upswing.
I mean, we hope so with the right efforts. Yeah, I would agree. You know, but you've got these like very exposed, vulnerable human beings that are taking the biggest gun they can carry and stepping into the line of fire of these hulking, crushing, metal, robotic adversaries. And to me, that is part of the beauty of it.
Well, man, this game it's so solid. It looks so good. It has so much availability. I mean, you're so open about working with it and continuing the rule set. But I mean, your website is Ignition Core Games, plural.
Yep.
.com. We have Ignition Core. Do you have any future plans for Ignition Core Games as a company?
Yes, absolutely. That sounds like a loaded question.
I mean, that's probably because it is, but you know.
So if you go to the Discord, there is a channel called Project Sanctuary. So if you get that up on screen, you can see that there is a whole nother project.
I could probably get that going here in a minute. Let's see here.
So
it'll take me a second, but I will get that there. Oh, I might have taken the wrong one off. Oh, I got rid of you. Hold on. Let me put you back.
Okay.
We'll get there eventually. What have I done? Well, I can still hear you. I just can't see you.
Eventually.
Let's see here. There we go. Now you're back.
All right.
Actually open the right thing here. And I might not be able to show it on here, but you can still, the Discord link that I've shown in the chat, and I'll have it down in the description on the YouTube side of things, will be there. There we go. Now we're cooking.
All right. So the quick and dirty. I mean, I love both fantasy and sci-fi. If you took mechs off, like giant robots, off the table, I would probably be more disposed to fantasy. But once you add big giant robots, big stompy robots, that's where, like, I got to go sci-fi over fantasy. So this game here, it was called Project Sanctuary at its inception. It's known as Bastard Sword Chronicles. That is the current working title for it. And that may be the release title for it if people are not overly offended by the fact that I call it Bastard Sword Chronicles. However, this is a self-DMing, Souls-like, JRPG-like dungeon crawler on the table. And this is another game where it takes me about maybe 60 seconds to explain the rules. But I put this in front of playtesters, and we blink and 3 hours have gone. Jared, you played this one.
I'm beyond jazzed for this to be released and fleshed out and released. Yeah, because I'm like the complete opposite of you, where like as soon as you put like a pointy ear on an elf or something like that, then I'm like all in. You know, I'm more fantasy than sci-fi. You're more sci-fi than fantasy, but we have like the Venn diagram where we very heavily meet in the middle of that. So.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm very much in love with both fantasy and sci-fi. This is my fantasy project. It is, as opposed to Ignition Core, in its current iteration, which, you know, is a PvP game. Ignition Core is 1 to 4 players, so you can play this by yourself or with up to 3 other friends. And this is a very resource-driven fight your way into the depths of depravity kind of game. The reason this one here, so this was actually the first project that Ignition Core Game Studio took on. I realized that between working a game studio and still being on active duty, I didn't have enough energy to commit to getting this perfect. Right? So Ignition Core has come out early because I've said, okay, I can make the miniatures, I can get the rules, I can get the data cards, and I can get this to you, and I can refine as I go. This game here will be a fully encased, like, in-box experience. You open the box, and everything is right where it needs to be. There will not be an FAQ on or an errata, unless there absolutely needs to be. This needs more time, effort, energy, and attention. But this is a game that maintaining that whole low model count, high model quality template that I've set up for myself, this is a game that when you get it, it will be a low, like, administrative demand. It's not going to make you learn like anything more than 3 pages of rules, and then anything situational will come out in the cards. Right? You'll level up your character, new cards will be unlocked, and I think the big thing with this is I've just been able to get it in front of a lot of people, a lot of playtesters, and explain the rules to them in 3 minutes. Maybe hold their hand a little bit through the first combat scenario. And that's more like tactical, right? Like, hey, these are the tactics available to you. As opposed to this is how the rules work. Like, everyone gets that super fast with this. And then after the first encounter, I'm watching people, and I play tested this on people that aren't even tabletop gamers, and they turn into shot callers, you know, like party leaders. Like, I
can say this one feels, and I know it's subject to change because this is not released. This is like playtest plus maybe, right. But like it does feel more like a board game plus. You know, it right. feels, it doesn't play like, but the closest comparison you can make to folks who might be watching my channel would be like a Blackstone Fortress, Silver Tower, you know, Warhammer Quest ish game, when really it holds its own and has had completely different mechanics. But like if you were just looking at it, you'd be like, oh, I like this game, I might like this. Oh, this plays very different, but very much quicker and easier and more intuitive with a very different world. But, you know, it's a good baseline to go off of. Certainly doesn't feel like a copy at all. It's just the best I can come up with for what my Warhammer fans on here would follow. But, you know, This is more to talk about that you do have more games in the pipeline, as it were, and Ignition Core, the game itself, isn't where this ends. You've mentioned before on this podcast that it's Ignition Core Games is in it for the long haul, and that doesn't mean that it's just one game getting better and better and having more and more expansions. It's multiple games. So I just wanted to bring this up to make that clear to folks.
Yeah, no, that is a good catch. I will continue to, do this for as long as I can. I really enjoy Ignition Core. Bastard Sword Chronicles, as it exists, I mean, it is a complete game as long as you've got me in the room. So I've just got to spend the next year or 2 years after my last active duty contract ends figuring out how this game works without me in the room. It shouldn't be too hard. It's just going to be time consuming, and I can't do it while I still have a day job. So hopefully in the next 2 years this is out there in some form for you guys to pick up and buy. But once when Ignition, with Ignition Core, I will make it exactly to the point it needs to be made. I'm not going to milk it. Once there's enough models, enough supplements, enough content out there, I will only continue to make the content that you want. I'm not going to, artificially extend it. To keep making games, I will move to this game, and I hope to move to this game sooner and build this game out to its natural conclusion. And once this game has done that, I'll move on to another concept. The key thing I want to stress here, and I'm going out on a limb here, but we've watched, I'm a big anime nerd. And we've watched TV series, we've watched animes, and we all know the TV series or the anime series where they had the correct and natural beginning, middle, end. And then we all know those ones that jump the shark. So
just riding that ship down the waters, as it were.
Exactly. I'll tell you now, I have a zero shark jumping policy here. I don't want to jump any sharks. I don't want to build anything here beyond its own natural lifespan. Ignition Core, you can play it forever and ever. It will have the content it needs to have. I'm not going to try and extend it artificially to cash grab. If it needs a new faction, it gets a new faction. I'm not going to make factions up that it doesn't need. I'm not going to make up content that it doesn't need. I'm not going to make anything that doesn't add value to your experience. But to reflip side that, I want to continue to do this for as long as I can, as long as it's valuable. So if you're playing and loving Ignition Core and out of material, I will happily make more material. I just don't want to, and here I am going around in circles. I don't want to just keep making material for the sake of it. I think you know what I'm saying here.
Yeah. I mean, you're doing this for a living, but you're not forcing it for any kind of cash grabs. It's just, you're going to let everything run its natural course, no matter how short or long that is.
Exactly. And I think Ignition Core has a good ways to go. Isalia is a pretty substantial world. The PvP version of it can run indefinitely, and I can just continue to rebalance and refocus that as, feedback comes in, as new units arrive. And the PvE, 1 to 4 player co-op, I can just continue to build in that world.
I
in
imagine
meaningful
as
ways.
your community grows, as the game grows, people will start throwing out narratives, and you'll start thinking of narratives, and that's where the natural growth will come. Is realizing
Right.
where the world of Asalia is growing, not necessarily just the game of Ignition Core, but the world of Asalia. You know, that could
Exactly.
grow into bigger Ignition Core games, and that could possibly even grow into other side games that aren't even just Ignition Core. You know, it could be some. There's just a lot of possibilities, but hey, Will, I really appreciate you taking the time to come on here and talk about this, and let your passions be known, and show your passion project to the public, as it were.
Right.
Anytime you want to come on and talk, anytime people would like me to, pester Will to come on and talk about this, let me know. But hey, again, it's very much appreciated. Is there anything that you'd like to say in conclusion? If not, make sure it's your websites.
Hey, if you made it this far, thanks for joining us. And if you've helped me by supporting my game, just thank you for being here. That's really it. I just want to keep doing this for you guys for as long as possible, and hearing what I've heard from you guys, that this has brought something that you needed to your table. That's huge. That's humbling. So, I mean, I'm looking forward to our game tomorrow. I'll get the highlights out there, so that people have something to stew on until the full battle report goes up. And no, thank you for having me here. Thank you for allowing me to exist on your platform.
Man, it's fun for me, so I'm just glad you came on. Hey, for everybody that doesn't know where you are, this is Razor Tree Productions, twitch.tv/Razor Tree, youtube.com/user/Razor Tree. You can go to Razor Tree Productions to follow any of our content. We do wargaming of all sorts, not just Warhammer Age of Sigmar, but also Ignition Core, eventually 40k and Reign in Hell, and whatever else I just happen to feel like playing. For Will, ignitioncoregames.com. That is where you get this awesome game and any games he creates in the future. Check it out. Get you some models. Let us know what you get. Hey, and let us know in the comments afterwards, if you like one of the factions, what's your favorite faction? And what's your favorite thing about the game, about what it has to offer. Otherwise, everyone, have a wonderful war game.